Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. How's it going? It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us on this journey. It's always so beautiful to have you, and thank you for joining us for this live stream. Been thinking about you a lot. This is how it usually goes. We were on a walk this morning. I got up very early. I had a beautiful time with the Creator this morning. And one of the things that I'm always reminded of is this mantra of this live stream is we're healthy, we're wealthy, we're whole, we're free. I love this mantra. But today I want to go deeper. And I want to preface this by saying that a few days ago, Saturday night, I was part of a meeting with some spiritual leaders, some military leaders, some thought leaders, a group of really, really high caliber individuals in terms of heart, intellect, spirit, right? When I say high caliber, it doesn't mean these are people, because I don't view it people like that. I don't view people as above or beyond someone else. And the one thing that we all agreed upon and that everybody kind of knew just walking into this meeting was we are all at war. And the interesting thing was that part of this meeting was a speech by a general from the 1950s. And see, Jagger agrees. Come here, boy. Hey, quit it. Come on. He agrees. Jagger, come here, boy. Come here, boy. Hey. It's real. It's unscripted. It's the real deal here. All right. So it was this military speech. This is our 13-year-old golden retriever. I think he doesn't see very well, so sometimes he just gets frightened. It was a speech addressed to a West Point speech from the 1950s or I believe 1950s, and it was addressing the soldiers. It was addressing the warriors and what qualities a soldier needs, what qualities a warrior needs. And it was a really, really good speech, but we all agreed that we're at war in this third world war. It's fifth and sixth generational warfare, and we're all in it. The people are now all in it. So everybody now is a warrior. It's different than it used to be. And whether people realize this or not, we're all warriors now. And the battlefield is everywhere because it's a war for our mind, for our heart, and for our spirit. And I want to go into the 9 qualities of a warrior, and you can say 9 qualities of a spiritual warrior. But I believe every true warrior needs to have these qualities, and every true warrior, hopefully, is a spiritual warrior. So let me get into this here. Hold on, here we go. The first principle, the first quality that every warrior needs to have is awareness. Sharpen your awareness every day. You are at war with the darkness of ignorance. Pay attention to your intentions, your thoughts, your speech, and your actions. This is this is one of the key points that drives everything else. It's where is your awareness? Where is your consciousness, right? Realizing that there is a part of you that is always observing everything around you. It's the attention part of you. And most people live by default, which means they are not in charge of their awareness anymore. Their awareness is guided and distracted, or is distracted. They're being distracted from being aware by all kinds of forces outside of them. So becoming aware is equal to being present in the moment. Let me repeat that. Becoming aware is equal to being present in the moment. You cannot be aware if you're not present. If you are all over the place, there's no way you can be aware. So this is really, really important, right? Pay attention to your intentions, your thoughts, your speech, and your action. All right, let me go to the second quality here. And the second quality Just want to make sure you can see this on your screen as well. Actually, no, you can't. There we go. The second quality is courage. The path of the spiritual warrior is not easy. You will face danger, uncertainty, and adversity. Have the courage to meet these challenges head on. Now, let me read this again to you, because a lot of people in our comfort-driven world don't want to hear this. The path of the spiritual warrior is not easy. It isn't. You will face danger, uncertainty, and adversity. Have the courage to meet the challenges head on. Now, because you are in a heightened state of awareness, because you perceive and because you are able to read and see things for what they are, your path will never be easy. It doesn't mean it won't be fulfilling. It doesn't mean it won't be interesting. It doesn't mean it won't be purposeful, but it will not be easy. Easy, if you want to put it that way, easy in terms of how do you coast through life, the easiest is probably the path of ignorance, right? The things you don't know don't bother you, but the things you do know might, and they might inspire you to take action, and they might inspire you to take charge. So it requires courage. Let me move on to the next quality that is needed. Discipline. Boy, this is one people don't want to hear about. Never, ever. You must control your impulses, desires, and emotions. Show up every day, especially when it's uncomfortable. There is no substitute for discipline. I'll read this again because I know this is something that a lot of people struggle with. You must control your impulses, desires, and emotions. Show up every day, especially when it's uncomfortable. There is no substitute for discipline. The thing with the impulses and the desires is that a lot of people think eventually they go away. They don't. We have instincts, right? Instincts are our lower form of consciousness, but instincts ultimately, if we do not have higher consciousness, still assure survival, right? The instinct for procreation, the instinct for feeding yourself, all these instincts assure survival. They don't assure any kind of higher experience or consciousness. But because we are conscious and aware beings, and because we have higher consciousness, we must learn to control these impulses and be the master of them. There is no substitute for discipline. And what is discipline? People mistake discipline for effort. Effort, I say, is effort is making yourself do something that you don't want to do for an outcome that doesn't really excite you either. That's different. Discipline is knowing it's the right thing, knowing it leads to a good outcome, but the action in and of itself might be challenging to do for you. You might have to use discipline and the power of your will to show up for it, right? That's where discipline is required. My background, I grew up as an athlete, as a professional athlete. And my main sport, I had many, but my main sport was alpine skiing. That means my season was from November, give or take, till March, maybe early April, right? So a short season. I had about 4 months of competition out of a year. So that's 1/3. 2/3 of the year, I had to show up every day with a lot of discipline for something that was far down the road, right? Because when I would sit on my bicycle, and doing 70, 80 miles a day, or even more sometimes, there was no immediate gratification in that. There was no, because I wasn't going down the slopes. I wasn't doing my sport. I was doing something else to be ready, to be prepared, to be strong, to have endurance and all these things. And that's when discipline is required. Discipline is the showing up everyday part, and you need it. Trust me, as a spiritual warrior and everybody else, whatever it is that you are set out to accomplish, you need discipline. All right, let me move on to the next slide here. What do we have? We have relentlessness. And relentlessness is something that is often mistaken for something else. But be relentless with false beliefs, ego delusions, and excuses. Self-importance is the enemy of enlightenment. You must kill this enemy with 1,000 cuts. Okay, I'll read all of them twice because I think they're important to hear. Be relentless with false beliefs, ego delusions, and excuses. Self-importance is the enemy of enlightenment. You must kill this enemy with 1,000 cuts. The ego and self-importance are how we are being seduced into a life of instant gratification, a life of no impulse control, a life of comfort and delusion ultimately, right? And everything that we're being shown from the mainstream, everything is about staying in our comfort zone and feeding our ego desires and delusions. And this leads to this whole idea of self-importance, self as the the experience that we're having. Self, you could say this ego self is, it's John Nolan, it's whatever, it's a husband, a father, a songwriter. But the self-importance is my temporary experience here. My human experience is so important in my comfort, my gratification. All my desires are so important that I will forsake principles, that I will forsake my morals. Doesn't matter, as long as I get what I want right now. And you have to be relentless with that ego. This self-importance really has to be killed. It's something that has to be mastered. And there is a true self, there is an eternal self, the spirit self, that must take the number one rank in your life. It must become the leader of your ship, right? And all the other needs that we have must rank lower. And the self-importance part, that's the discipline that you need to show up every day and be relentless with that, right? Those false ego beliefs, they don't need the first time when you realize them. Yes, you can have compassion with your past self. Yes, of course. But after that, you need relentlessness. No more cuddling yourself. No more, finding excuses for why it's okay to have these self-importance desires. It isn't. It is the death of you, who you really are, and you need to be relentless with that. All right, moving forward. Patience, right? This plays right into the ego thing. It does not matter if it takes a day or 1,000 years. Only your ego needs it now. You are part of a much bigger play. Do your part, the rest will come. It does not matter if it takes a day or 1,000 years. Only your ego needs it now. You are part of a much bigger play. Do your part, the rest will come. And by the way, what you hear in the back, that's our puppy, Montana. So in our world, patience is a virtue and a value that almost nobody develops anymore. Nobody has anymore. Everything needs to happen instantaneously. And this is the ultimate instant gratification addiction tool. It's the phones and the internet, all these things. So patience is really just the gateway to the real feeling that is required here. Patience is what you learn until you feel the true purpose of who you really are. Then you don't need patience anymore, because when you are on purpose, when you really live your life according to your purpose and your skills and your talents and what you were destined to do, then patience isn't needed anymore, because you're always on time. You're always it's always the right time, right? But patience is the learning curve until you get there. So for a while, you just have to really practice it and go, okay, it is okay. I accept this moment. I'm showing up for this moment. I accept it. Eventually, you won't need it anymore. I rarely find myself needing patience, because I feel like I am on purpose. I live my life on purpose. Okay, moving on to the next one. Number 6, gentleness. We're talking about the 9 qualities of the spiritual warrior, or the warrior in general. And I want to say these qualities are not complete. They're not a complete list, of course. And even the order, it doesn't really matter. All these qualities are equally important. Be strong enough to remain gentle. Water can come in big waves or gentle drops. You must be like water. Always stay in touch with your heart's true kindness and soft nature. I'll read this again. Gentleness. Be strong enough to remain gentle. Be strong enough to remain gentle. It's not a paradox. Water can come in big waves or gentle drops. You must be like water. Always stay in touch with your heart's true kindness and soft nature. The gentleness part for me is when, when you are really in touch with your true spirit. That is what guides you. It's a gentle nature. And this gentle nature lets you know which quality is most needed right now. Water in and of itself is neither dangerous nor calm. Water just is. It will always use the path of least resistance to get to its destination, but it doesn't mean it won't use any resistance. It uses the path of least resistance. And gentleness is understanding that you are much stronger in a state of allowing than you are in a state of resistance. There's a great exercise that we do at the YATO retreat. By the way, we're going to talk about that in a moment here, but there's a great exercise that everybody always has a huge aha moment with when they experience this. The difference between allowing and resistance, my goodness, they'll never forget what that feels like again. And gentleness is a state of allowing. It's the allowing for solutions to come in. It's the allowing for the flow of life. And it is required for everybody, but especially for the spiritual warriors out there. Okay, number 7, determination. You must be determined to walk alone if necessary. The majority is usually wrong. Don't let your fear of loneliness become stronger than your knowing of the truth. I know this is a big one for a lot of you out there, so I'll read it again. You must be determined to walk alone if necessary. The majority is usually wrong. Don't let your fear of loneliness become stronger than your knowing of the truth. So this is, I took a concrete example of determination. Determination is really needed when you're faced with worries and doubts, and when there's opposing views. And these opposing views might not bother you at first, but the stronger, the louder the voices become that oppose your view and the truth to be true, the more determination you're going to need to continue walking your path, even if there's nobody next to you. And this is something that all of us have experienced, or some are still experiencing, times where we feel very alone, but yet we know in our hearts that what we say, what we know, and what we express is the truth. And in order for you to be able to walk that path on your loneliest days, among other things, you will need determination. You'll need to be determined. It's a single-mindedness. It's a kind of laser sharp focus that keeps you on the path. Very, very, very important. All right. Number 8, honor. A very, very important one. Has been very misconstrued, very, very lowly spoken of. Honor is something that a lot of people don't even want to mention anymore. But the spiritual warrior must always honor his divine origin, his principles, and his word. Honor is doing the right thing when no one is looking. We talked about this at the meeting I mentioned earlier, Saturday night. The spiritual warrior must always honor his divine origin, his principles, and his word. Honor is doing the right thing when no one is looking. So this to me is highly important, because, as I said, honor is something that has almost been erased from our vocabulary and erased from our culture. Not nobody, but few people have honor in what they do and who they are. And honor to me is, as I said, really being true to who you are, your principles and your morals, your values, your word, keeping your word, even if it is more convenient not to. Honor is doing the right thing when no one is looking, literally. That is what honor is. And the person that should be the main judge of your own character is the person you see in a mirror. If you can look into your own eyes with honor, and if you know that you are walking, yes, Wayne Peak, integrity, a good addition for me to honor. You must walk your path with integrity and absolutely aligned with your values, your principles. Honor means to keep your word, that if you agree to do something, if you say you will do it, you do it, even and especially when it's uncomfortable and inconvenient, right? All right. The last one here, And of course, it could be first, it could be in the middle. It's the basis for everything. Love. The essence of a spiritual warrior is love. Every thought and every action must be rooted in it. Shine your love into the darkness of ignorance and transmute it. Let me say this again while Montana is going a little crazy in the back here. The essence of a spiritual warrior is love. Every thought and every action must be rooted in it. Shine your love into the darkness of ignorance and transmute it. Love is a basis for everything that we do anyways. I'd go as far as to say that every being wants to be loved and to love. That's really what this whole journey seems to be about in so many ways, is all of that. And when you know that all of your actions come from love, there's only two places it can come from. All your actions and decisions can come from love, or they can come from fear. There's only the two options ultimately. Now you can say other words as substitutes for love and fear, but it still all boils down to either love or fear. People make choices out of love or fear. The choices out of fear lead to more situations of fear that warrant fear, that provoke fear, and they lead to more fearful life situations. The choices that are made from love lead to more loving situations in your life. That's really, really easy to understand. But the warrior that is conscious, the warrior that knows he's a warrior, must act from love. It must all be rooted in love. It can't be vengeance. It can be hatred. It cannot be those lower frequencies, because that will lead to more of it. See, there's a difference even in the most extreme situations. There's a huge difference between murdering and killing, right? There might come a time in your life, in my life, in our lives, where even taking a life might be part of our journey. Nobody of us wants to do it, but if the situation for some reason warrants it, and if for some reason it will become necessary, the love must still be there, either because you're protecting something or someone you love, or protecting yourself, and that warrants that. Then it's a different thing than killing with hatred and with vengeance. It's a very different thing, right? We must distinguish. We must go even in our minds into these situations, so we get to know this warrior within. This is why this is so important to me, because the war is happening on all levels. As I've said, the war is happening, and so much of it is happening in the digital space, right? Or where it's expressing itself, but it's happening on all levels. And we must know who we are before we can approach the enemy, right? And then we get to know the enemy. What and who is the enemy? What is its purpose? What is its goal? So all of these things are highly important to me. As I said, the list is not complete, and you all have listed some wonderful qualities here that I'm going to go through. But these are things and qualities that I'd encourage you to save this video and go through these slides. Even if you don't want to listen to me, just go through these slides and internalize them, meditate on them, show up for your journey every day. Don't get seduced into this false comfort, into the false illusion of not being fully present for your life. Someone else will take care of it. And for just pleasure, right? So many people are just talking about happiness and pleasure. And happiness and pleasure are very fleeting experiences. They're not rooted in something original. They're just little glimpses that are usually induced from outside of you. Fulfillment is a much deeper, it's a much more permanent state. Even joy is a much more permanent state. Balance is a very important state, right? We must walk in balance. Everything in our body, everything in our spirit, our brain, our chemistry, everything wants to consistently move to balance. Our brain cannot sustain longer, and our whole body chemistry, it cannot sustain long states of extreme joy, extreme bliss. Yes, it can go for a while, but then it has to return to balance again. And that's how we are. That's how nature is. That's how everything is. Everything must be in a state of balance. So to find a place where balance becomes your nature, where balance becomes your most dominant state of being, that is a desirable place to find in your life. And then you go on these journeys. Sometimes the journey of the high, where you experience the peaks, and sometimes you go into the valleys, because you have to experience some contrasts as well. Some authentic sadness sometimes, or even authentic anger. All of that is okay as long as your permanent and most dominant state is balance. All right, my friends, I just wanted to share this with you. And also for us to realize that when we hear the word warrior, a lot of people think of soldiers, weapons, tanks, bombs, violence. The path of the true warrior is to be so pure in all of these qualities and intentions that violence usually is not needed. Violence is the last, and it's not even violence. It's for example, if you look at defense and defending something, protection, it's not violence. That's the end of violence, right? It's a different thing. To use force to protect yourself is not violence. Violence is something that someone is motivated by to take an offensive action and use violence for it. But that's not how the true warrior operates. And the most wonderful, conscious, and pure warriors I've met in my life, I've never seen them use violence. They are capable. Yes, they are capable. They're capable of, they're capable of very quickly ending violence. But I've never seen them use force, most of them. In extreme situations on occasion, but very little. Because every true warrior is honoring this inner journey. And that's what they're expressing in the world. It's much more powerful, by the way. All right. Much love to you all. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Almost forgot. I wanted to mention, we just opened the registration for the YATO retreat. Christina and I, this is, by the way, this is it. This is what YATO stands for. You are the one. And we do them twice a year. And people ask us, why don't you do them more often? And, because when it sells out, it sells out. We have a small group of people. It's never, it will never get bigger than that. We don't want it to. And the reason why we only do 2 a year, because it's so intense. Because for over 3.5 days, we go so deep. And if Christine and I are not 100% certain we can give absolutely 100%, we wouldn't do it. So that's why we do it twice a year. And the next one is from October 10th to October 5th through October 8th. It's going to be in Cape San Blas, Florida, at the beach. And if you wonder what YATO is about, it's a lot about the things that I discussed today. But really, the people that show up at YATO all usually share a deep knowing, a deep inner knowing that they have a purpose, a strong purpose, and for some reason, something seems to be holding them back. That's usually why people are coming, and they want to realize that purpose in their lives. They want to live it on all levels. They want to experience the connection to their deepest, strongest, most highest part, and that's what we do over 3.5 days. We have all these experiences that we go through. Some absolutely breakthrough meditations where we break through all the bullshit barriers and really go deep and connect to higher spirit, your higher spirit, which it's such an intimate journey for everyone. But at some point during those 3.5 days, everybody is usually having one of these profound experiences. We go into family constellation quite a bit. We go into the healing journey quite a bit, and how to honor yourself, your path, but also others around you. For example, boundaries. And they're very, very powerful experiences. I will say 2 things before you consider signing up. I always say this. It's almost like It's almost like a screening or filtering process, really. There are two things about YATO that we require. Number one, you have to be ready. You have to have that feeling inside of you to know this is it. Because we go deep, and the groups that show up are usually very, very ready to do that. If you're on the fence and maybe, then it's not for you yet. But if you feel it strongly, if you feel inspired, if you feel a deep inner knowing, yes, then that's absolutely for you. And the second requirement is that you cannot be on any kind of drug that's psychotropic. So mind altering drugs, legal or illegal, but that just does not work. You won't be able to have these experiences, and you won't be able to get there, to break through. It's not a judgment, by the way. This is just out of experience. We know this doesn't work. So without further ado, if you feel inspired to learn more, there's a link in the description where you can learn more about the YATO retreat. Again, it's from October 5th to October 8th, 2023. So in a few months here, Cape San Blas, Florida. And we would love to have you if you feel inspired to join us. And you can also read some reviews on a website, by the way. All righty. Have a wonderful, beautiful rest of your day. We love you. We appreciate it. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon.